Now, I know our next candidate had another activity, and I'm just not sure if she's here. There's Diane here? Okay, so we'll come in a little bit later. Okay, we're going to move on. Is Joe here? He's hiding too. Okay. Well, we're going to have to do a little bit of out of order. We learn to be flexible around here. Why don't we bring up Paul, if you are ready. Paul, I know is here because I saw him earlier. Paul's going to talk a little bit about get out the vote and a little bit more about volunteering. So Paul, Papineau.
I too am height challenged, so let me get this done. I'm not actually used to speaking in a public forum like this. I was in the Navy for 30 years, and I'm just used to speaking to people who have no choice but to do what I tell them to do. I want to talk a little bit about voter turnout. When you drive around the city now, you see a lot of yard signs. But this year, I don't see very many yard signs for Democrats. I see a lot more yard signs for Republicans than I do for Democrats. And the reason is because they've been told by the media, they've been told by newspapers, by network news, by cable news, by talk shows, that they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. And they don't feel the excitement to come out that they did in 08. But the Republicans and the conservatives do. We do. And we're putting the yard signs up. And what we want to do is further depress their vote and to build up the excitement among our fellow conservatives and bring them out to vote. One of the ways you can do this is with a yard sign. Yard signs have effects that we normally don't think about. One of the things is, you know who you're going to vote for when you go in for Senate, because that's all over the news. It's everywhere. You know all those names. But yard signs make our non-high-profile candidates known. In addition, the Democrats see your yard sign and they don't see theirs, and it further depresses them. Your neighbor sees your yard sign, and it gives them the courage to maybe get a yard sign of their own. It gets my neighbor down the street who never had a yard sign to go out and get a Judge Winter yard sign. So if you don't have yard signs in your yard, you need to get some. You can get them at the Republican headquarters. You can get them at the candidates. If you call them up, somebody will deliver one to you. So I really recommend strongly, encourage you to get yard signs. Another important tool is this voter guide, which I have right here and available. I actually have 300 of them on my desk. Well, it's not my desk, my table. I am going around my neighborhood, and I am going to hand out all 300 of them myself, knock on the door and hand them out. The reason I'm doing this is because I took 15 of them down to the American Legion and handed them out, and there were 20 or 30 guys there, and I handed them out, and everybody wanted one. I think of the number of times I've gone into the voting booth in the past, and I said, geez, I don't know which one of those clerks to vote for. I wasn't following that race. You know, I just moved into the area. I don't know which sheriff is the best. I don't know which judge I should vote for, because I've been following the Senate race. I've been following my district race. When I gave one of these to my mother-in-law, God, actually, she's the best mother-in-law in the world. She lives with me. She's 86 years old. She cooks all my meals. When I gave one of these to her, she took it, went through it, and she thanked me. I don't get a lot of thanks from my mother-in-law, and she thanked me. She thought it was terrific. I gave one of these to my neighbor next door, who unfortunately was not able to be here tonight, and they went out and got yard signs for the candidates that they like. So I encourage you to take these and hand them out at your churches, at your civic groups, to your neighbors, to whomever, because this solves the problem of our non-high profile candidates. It lets them know which ones we support. And we know they support us because they're out in droves. I mean, the Tea Party movement and the NIP movement, we're the ones they want to be like. Okay, what's next on my list here? Get out the vote. I think this election can in some ways be determined by participation. I know in the last election, I was a poll watcher in the last election up in Milwaukee. I'm still alive. But the Democratic turnout was immense. And they were bringing people into the polls. They were bringing in guys who were alcohol challenged from the mission across the street and getting them to vote. So they have the machine to get out the vote, but I don't think it's going to work this time because nobody's interested. We want to do that. We want to get our vote out. We want to call the independents. We want, because they've changed sides, we want to call the conservatives. We want to call the Republicans. We want to encourage them to get out to vote. We want to have lists. We want to start in about a week because early voting starts next Monday. And what we want to do is get the list of those who have voted. And we don't want to call them. We won't waste our time. But we'll get a list of people who we want to call. We'll scratch off the names of the people who have already voted, and we'll call the voters who haven't voted yet and encourage them to vote. I'd like to tell you a little story. I worked for Jack Metcalf in Washington State. Being in the Navy for so long, I've lived almost everywhere. I worked for Metcalf, and I had all these teenage girls from the local church who came in and called. And I ordered pizza in for them, and they called all these people. And one of the teenage girls started laughing. And when they did that, I would encourage them to tell everybody else what was going on. And she said to me, well, I called this guy mistakenly for the third time. And he said to me, please don't call me anymore. I'm going out to vote right now. And then I learned that teenage girls are the best ones because they can get away with anything. My teenage girls did, but they couldn't. So voter guides solve the problem of our non-high-profile candidates. They tell conservatives who to vote for. And I recommend that you take these, and or not the voter guides, but get out to vote, that it gets our non-profile candidates elected, it gets our high-profile candidates elected, and it serves the purpose that we want to serve, which is to get our vote out, and we'll use the other methods to depress the Democratic vote. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is poll watching. I did poll watching up in Milwaukee. It was probably something I will never forget because Milwaukee has so much voter fraud up there. They can actually come in and register then and vote. It was interesting. It's pretty easy to do. Poll watching here is pretty mundane, actually. But the fact that you are sitting there as a poll watcher is a deterrent in itself to fraud, because the people who are, they're generally organized. The people who would do that know there are poll watchers there, and they don't they don't try to commit fraud. You would be looking for things like somebody who maybe forgot their driver's license, and so they have to go back home. Somebody whose address doesn't match. Maybe you see a neighbor who's moved away. It's pretty non-confrontational. If you see something, you tell the election judge. They check their little computers, get it all worked out. For the one lady I saw, she had to go home and get her driver's license. There are also site supervisors who will come in or who are there already to help with any problems. There are hotlines to call for any questions that you have. So it's pretty easy, but it's pretty important. Now, poll watching, there are 2 times when it needs to be done. One is, of course, November 2nd. We all know that. But early registration starts Monday. And there are 19 or 20 early registration sites that could use poll watchers. But there's only 5 or 6 that really need them. You know what I mean? So we need to get organized. We need to get poll watchers to those places. Now we'll provide you training so that you'll know what to do. I mean, we wouldn't send you in there without having some idea of what you're supposed to do. So we'll provide you training so you know what your mission is or what you're supposed to do. And then we'll work with your schedule. Just like with the Get Out to Vote. You tell us what your schedule is, we'll get you on the phones at the time you can do it. We'll give you the training to do it. We'll do the same for poll watching. So it's pretty easy, but it's very important. Now, I don't want to wake up on Wednesday morning and find out that Nancy Pelosi is still in office. I don't want to look in the mirror and say she's still in office because I didn't try. You don't give me that one chair. I got a little distracted. I don't want to look in the mirror and say that Nancy Pelosi is still in office because I didn't try, because I didn't volunteer, because I didn't put a yard sign in my yard, because I didn't hand out voter guides. And you don't either. So I encourage you to volunteer. If you want to be a poll watcher, see Tony. If you want to work on the Get Out to Vote, raise your hand, Chuck. Chuck's got the cards right down there. I'll be there. Come over and give me your name and your phone number, and I'll do the rest. Thanks for your time.